Beautiful sunny afternoon here in Dallas, and I have the distinct honor of celebrating and welcome a king of localization, Mr. Jose Palomares, the Senior Director of Global Experiences. Did I call that out correctly, Jose? Why don't you introduce yourself a little bit better? But a lot of people know you, of course, already. So go ahead.
I guess I make a lot of noise usually. Never thought of myself as king of localization. I hope that it comes with all the benefits, like not having to
Yeah, a
really
crown,
work that
maybe.
much. And oh yeah, well, the crown got to be a big one. I gotta tell you that. Um, yeah, well, thank you first of all for having me, Stefan. It's great to have the opportunity to talk for a little bit about a few things that I think are interesting to both of us. So thank you very much for having me. I'm Jose Palomares. So I've been in this space for a very long time, more than 25 years, and I am currently the Senior Director of Global Experiences at Coupa. And Coupa is a AI native total spend management company. So if you're in the business of spending money, chances are you might have heard about Coupa, or you will uh, very soon. And yeah, I like that moniker. I like the global experiences a lot better than every other thing that we have like tried before. I,
Yeah,
I would say,
I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you about that because there's so much talk about shifting left and moving up the stream, talking to people above localization, etc. And somehow, I think that term "global experiences" that you've tagged onto your title is somewhat meant in that direction. Am I correct in that assumption, or what was the reasoning behind that change of title?
yeah. So there is two sides of it. One of them was to uh, really reposition what we do and drop the what I call the L word, because I really don't like it. So localization is a really terrible term that no one understands, that we don't even understand, and very often we just end up saying translation so that people understand. So I've been so tired of that. So one of it is like the inner looking, right? Like industry looking. It's about, or it was about, making sure that we call ourselves something else, something that is more representative of what we do. In my case, it also meant a shift in the scope of things and the way that we would work internally for the organization. So it wasn't just rebranding and calling yourself something else so that people understand. It was also doing that as we were turning into a broader function, doing more things than just dealing with language. And I don't think that anyone in localization really works only with language, but that is how it is perceived. So we did a number of we changed a few parameters on how to go about business. Where does localization start and end? Dropped the go global strategy where everything needs to be done the same for all the regions that you care about. And we decided to take an approach that focuses on what can we do for that region in particular, what it is that they're craving most, and can we start small, better than not to start at all, to do something for that region. So that's been a little bit of the motive for it. I hope that wasn't too long of an
No,
answer,
no,
but
it's
I
not
could
too.
talk about that
It's
thing
never
for
too
a good
long
hour.
here. We like long answers.
Wait a
That's
second.
that means that we're in a
I've lost
topic.
you. I've lost you, Stefan. I was
Okay,
hearing a music for whatever reason. Sorry, that might have been my phone and
okay.
multi-point connection. Sorry, I lost you. I
We
lost
won't
you.
let it. We won't let it trip us up too
Good.
bad. So no answers are too long here. If we go long, it means that we're in a topic that you're interested in. So that's precisely the aim of my questions. Let's talk a little bit about the first topics. The first topic that I wanted to broach with you: uh, complexity instead of volume. What does it mean, really, owning that kind of a workflow nowadays? From a buyer's perspective, what risks keep you up at night when it comes to AI and localization, Jose?
I think that the main thing that keeps me up at night is that we might disappear and be replaced uh, by AI. Not all of us, not to every capacity, right? But a lot of us. So the fact that I tell my team on a daily basis that it is smart to wake up every day and go to work knowing that someone might decide that we're not necessary anymore, rightfully or wrongly, but that is a real risk. So it's become part of my daily routine to try and think. We know that what we do is valuable. We know that we're like experts at what we do. The problem is other people don't know it, and the problem is that we cost money. If what we do did not cost money, everybody would be just like, opening doors to us and say, yes, please come in and do more of what you do. But it does cost money. So everybody wonders if it's going to be worth it. I just try everything that I can to make sure that people understand what value we create so that they give us. I was talking to someone and this week, and I love how we said, no, it was actually a post on LinkedIn, and it was said, we need to give our organizations what they need to do our job. So it's not that we have any axe to grind. It's not that we have our own agenda. It's about convincing our organizations that what we do is super valuable and that we need the resources to do it.
One of the things that you do undoubtedly is select vendors, and you've been on both sides of the house, so you have very good experience in that regard coming into the position. If you had to choose one behavior that signals strategic maturity in a vendor, what would it be currently, and how has it changed recently, in your opinion?
I I think that something that signals maturity is anything that moves away from the traditional per word model of looking at how we create value is by churning these many words. It's not, or even getting caught on things like what is the per word price or how will that scale. I think that all of that is the least important, and I like the topic about like complexity. I like when someone approaches me and tries to make me aware of all the things that could go right and wrong about my organization. And, for someone who gets, I kid you not, 7 emails every day with someone trying to solicit some business for translation, telling you that everybody's the absolute best and they have the best cases and the best technology and the best knowledge, you rarely see people who come up to you just saying, I know that things are changing for you. Is this other service that we're providing now interesting to you? Because the one thing that I wish that people understood is that when you're on the buyer side, your hands are tight, really tight. Even if you have budget, doesn't mean that you can spend it in the things that you want, or you know how to spend it, or you're confident in spending it in whatever could be the next solution. So a vendor that actually comes forward with that message of anticipating what my struggles might be, what I might be seeing internally, and coming up with services that I wish I could create, but I can't, and they will create for me. That is the kind of street conversation. That's how you like street talk me into whatever it
All
is that you
right,
want to say.
that's a great tip already, but let's lift the veil a little bit further, if we can, Jose. Uh, what kind of internal pressures are enterprise localization leaders or global experience leaders, I should say, in your case, facing right now, so we can get a better idea from the vendor side how we could possibly help you out with that?
Hmm. I'm afraid that it's the same. Is the same as the vendors and everybody on the vendor side. I think it's the same pressure for everyone. We sooner or later, our leaders are waking up to the I want to say fantasy because it's grounded in reality, right? But to the belief that what we can do can just be done with AI. That's it. That the problem is solved. I had I've sat in I sat in a lot of conversations, conferences that were not necessarily localization, where someone will happily say, well, yeah, the translation problem is solved, which we know is so far from solved. But I've been seeing that some of us, we've been luckier than others in how quickly that came knocking on our doors, but it eventually does come. Someone comes with the belief that I've read, I've seen, I think, I've done some translations with this thing. Why are we even spending money if AI can solve it? And of course, with that comes all the lack of knowledge about how generative AI works, what the limitations are, and the risks that come with it. But it has happened in my organization that it's either leadership or it's a peer who doesn't want to send work your way because it's easier to click that button in the UI of the tool that they're using to create the type of content that they're using or process the content, whether it's a CMS, a design tool, whatever it is. It's Figma that is a translate button. That is, it is your CMS, translate that content. It is whatever it is. It's the website. You can translate it automatically. Either leadership wants everything with AI, or your colleagues don't want to go through you because it's slower, more costly, and it just feels so tempting to click the button.
Yeah.
So we're all facing the same problem. And again, LSPs see business decline because of that, and they need to adapt and do other things. On the buyer side, we see our teams being reduced or capped or overnight just wiped clean and eliminated because of those beliefs and cost savings. It's a tricky time.
Yeah. From a practical implementation point of view and your experience, does AI at times amplify the complexity instead of reducing it, or is that not something that you're dealing with?
I mean, yeah, AI amplifies complexity in the way that it does things without you knowing.
Mm.
It does. It might not return what you think it's returning. It makes mistakes. It falsely claims to have completed something successfully, and it still requires that you triple check. So you remember, if you forget to do the triple checking, then you're going to be in trouble. So it is only that. It's like having like a coworker that is super good at it. I always say that I hope we can stay with the analogy that AI is like a super talented intern. It's someone that you can hand over tasks and they will do their best, and they know a lot. They have a study, they have the energy, they're always available, they're always willing to learn, they're hungry, but at the same time you need to check their work. So in
You're
so
not a
many
big
cases
fan of the
when
clawbot model, then I would assume at this point.
no, it's no, but I think that it's all, everything is an equation of risk, right? So you need to decide at every step in your position, and it never can be like 100% one way or another. It's a spectrum of shades. What are you with risk? Can you tolerate it? Then go for it, for crying out loud. If
Yeah.
you're just doing, if I create my personal website and I don't care about anything, and I might just have it in 100 languages, why not? Oh, you might be making a fool of yourself. Yeah, but at least someone will say, "Hey, that guy translated the website into 100 languages. Maybe I prefer that. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that gives me enough pride. As long as I know that I am probably making a few messes along the way. Why not?"
Maybe one more question to tip the veil a bit more for the vendors and give them a chance to wow you with their services. Where do vendors misunderstand the corporate procurement dynamics and process, and how could they do a better job at grasping it?
Okay, so I work for a company that does procurement software. So procurement is closer to my heart than many, and I send kicks and hugs to my procurement people from here, current and future. So if you watch this in 20 years, please remember, I love you, procurement. But procurement can be your best ally, uh, or it can be your
Your
worst
worst
enemy.
enemy.
It really depends. It really depends on the company and the team and what it is that you're doing. But I think I think that something that's misunderstood is that we have like very little control over how procurement works. So we're subject to its whims as much as everybody else is. But one thing, in my experience, always wins. If you can anticipate the questions, the process becomes so much better, because nothing pisses off more people in procurement than people trying to take advantage of them. So be sure that you're competitive, or that you're like market, or that you have a good reason to not be. And then, as the people who are actually coming forward with a proposal, trying to onboard someone, trying to gain favor to win a contract, do an RFP, come with as much information. I call it's something I call the 8 Mile effect. Have you seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yes.
So final for those who might have not, final battle, the protagonist actually, instead of like rapping against his opponent, he basically anticipates everything that the other guy can say that is bad about him. By the time that the other one gets to sing, he has nothing to say. There's nothing else funny. There's nothing else bad. So I like to preempt conversations like that. And in my experience with procurement, that is one of the great signals, because a procurement team will realize that you've done due diligence, that and you still invite them. So for instance, I try to do the negotiations before, and I try to agree on something, on a discount or whatever it is, so that I can start the conversation saying, I already tried my best. Now procurement, please come into this review that it's all legit and see if you can improve it. And oftentimes they can't. You've done good enough of a job, maybe because of relationships, maybe because you know what you're doing, or you've been around for a while. But that preemption, it's really a positive for the procurement teams. So try to, if you know that they're going to be asking about IT, if you know that they're going to be asking about contracts, private information, try to bring that forward on your first interactions with procurement. And if you're a vendor, give that to your clueless partner on the enterprise, so that they can push it forward. That goes back to maturity, right? It's I was telling someone today who is trying to onboard a new client on a different type of business, and I told him, just try and figure out all of this complexity ahead of getting the conversation started. It will just make it so much more smooth. So,
Yeah, solid business advice across many verticals, I would assume. Let's talk a little bit about AI as a stress test. There's a lot of fear in the localization industry about AI, but in what ways is AI really exposing the weaknesses that were already there, in your opinion?
I mean, AI is exposing that the world doesn't really speak languages. That's why we have an internet that speaks mostly English, and that's why we don't have enough data to create. In an ideal world, the first ChatGPT should have like come translating perfectly into not perfectly, but a lot better in languages across. And we know that that's not true. That it's a very very select group of languages. But it is amplifying. It's amplifying the lack of care. The fact that
Yeah.
you can get something quick and cheap, it just beats the other. We always talk about that triangle of how the quality, the speed, and the cost. If you get, unfortunately, everybody says, well, okay, maybe you can have 3 of them. Yeah, but most people just move forward if they have 2. So I think that is where it is evidencing that as businesses, we are like LSPs, people on the corporate side. We're not necessarily business people. We haven't been trained. We're not all MVAs who really can present our case or build our case on how to do this, on getting support, on things like that. And AI is just turning everything into a conversation about cost, and it's really it's really awful.
Yeah. A lot of the capabilities are overstated a little bit. I'm always surprised
Oh,
when LSPs come out and pretend to be the newest AI player on the block, and we know there's only a handful, and everybody's using wrappers of those handfuls. So how different can the product really be? How should vendors communicate better and more realistically about their AI capabilities, in your opinion?
I I think that I don't listen to anything that anyone says about their own capabilities. So that's why I don't even entertain the conversation of like, oh, there's a new feature and it's going to be so great and it's much better than all the benchmarking that we did before. And it's like, and it's the same thing if you just look at AI, right? It's ChatGPT. Oh, now it's going to be like a PhD graduate that is working with you. All right. Well, not quite. Is it better than the previous one? Yes. But is it good? Yeah, it's still a work in progress. I so I don't even listen to the sales pitches as such. If you want to prove something, come forward with a case study. A case study that shows real numbers and a lot of detail. If you just tell me that it improve satisfaction or delivery or things like that, and there is a customer that's willing to say that, or you cannot even like quote the customer, what can I say? If you're
Yeah.
willing to actually connect me with that customer that had the conversation for a private chat, and then I can ask a few questions about, hey, practically, how good was this? And how much did it cost? And how hard it was? And how happy you are now? And uh, are you friends with them still because they take you to events and dine you and wine you, or because they really deliver results for it? So I would I was that is something that happens, and it nothing means anything unless I see success case. So I encourage people to run pilots because it's very hard to have a success case on AI, right? You can only have them at a small scale before you can have them at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So run a pilot, run an experiment, take it very seriously, agree on whether you'll be able to share it then with other prospects and with other people, and then just go for it. I will read that. I will listen to that. Most of the adoption of technology that I've done, I'm a crowding user, is because I met someone else who had already tried and had an opinion that I respected. Never, unfortunately, from a sales pitch or the latest and brightest. If I had to believe that, I would, I would have expected Google Translate to have solved every problem under the sun many years back when they reached human parity. Remember
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Human parity? Well, still waiting for that.
It's very difficult nowadays to come up with a real good strategic differentiation in a tight funnel the way it is. Why do you think many providers struggle to articulate their value today, and how could they do a better job at articulating it?
So I think that the reason why is because we had it easy for a very long time. Period. I think it's life is catching up with us. Like I said, I work on the LSP for many many years, and I've met many people on the buyer side, on the corporate side, that were not necessarily super capable to run a business.
Mm-hmm.
So when all you had to do was like sign a big contract and do words and words and words and words, that was the good years. But then you should have been looking into more complexities, right? Technological scale, whatever it is, and you should have developed that before. How can you position yourself right now? I think that it's beautiful that this new technology that is like messing everything up is as available to you as to the big providers and the big companies before. And this applies to both vendors and it applies to buyers as well. I had a conversation the other day talking to someone who is building a connector for crowding. And and at some point I was like getting a little bit surprised, even anxious. And I just said, should we build it? Should me, on the buyer side, we're waiting for someone to build two things from two systems that we need. But right now, with a little bit of talent, we can do it. If you know enough, you just need to have like that. There is this edge that you need to like fall over, where you start to realize that AI is a lot more democratized than you realize it is, and that a lot of the things that are being built, you could build yourself to a degree. So I think that applies to things like all of these agents that we've been seeing, the big providers creating these suites of applications. I created some smaller versions of those. I've done them with like much smaller talent, and they perform as well or even better. So my recommendation is look into that. Don't it only takes I used to say it only takes like one engineer. You only need to have like one engineer part-time working on figuring out AI solutions for you to actually create enough to uh, intoxicate your whole organization, so that to the point where everybody comes up with ideas and everybody knows what they could do, where you hear a problem from a customer and you say, hey, why don't we do that? And then you research it and you realize that someone else has already done it, and it's so easy to just follow in their tracks. Nowadays, depending for what, you don't even need those engineers. You have a lot of talent, untapped talent in project managers, in some cases in translators, definitely, on program managers, people who were just doing their job, but they have a lot of curiosity, and now they can tap into these superpowers. The only thing is you need to funnel that. You need to find those people. You need to actively work on that so that it happens. Otherwise, it will not happen organically, which is pretty sad. Sometimes we see talent waste away at a company just doing the same thing forever, while the company is also like languishing and fading away a little bit. It's like, well, we need the right combination of like pick the talent and just empower them.
And I was going to ask you, it seems like you're answering that question partially. What are buyers actually willing to pay a premium for today? It's probably a combination of that, where somebody comes up with inventive solutions that are practical to you, and otherwise you would have to dedicate resources to. So it's a combination of language skills with technical capabilities. Am I correct on that?
Yep. And again, it comes to this opacity that people have, like on the vendor side over like what happens on the buyer side. It's on the enterprise side, I can't spend money on resources. In many cases, you could be managing a budget of millions of whatever currency and not be able to spend it on getting yourself an engineer or resources or running a pilot or things like that. But you can figure out a way to get your partners, and I hate vendors because vendor is for me, it's a transactional thing. It's a one-time thing. If you're going to be helping me and I'm going to be helping you, that should be a partnership. So we can build that partnership with you can help me where my hands are tied and I cannot help myself. You have that flexibility. You're a smaller company in many cases. You have you can do whatever it is with your personnel. You don't have to. You can retrain, repurpose, hire, contract, do a million things that I cannot do. That is a massive strength. That flexibility of not being on my seat. So you just I had this story where like it's I explained it at some conference where I had this partner that actually has like built some AI tools for us, and they had never done anything like that for us. But I was just chatting with the after the QBR, I was chatting with the owner of that company and says like, I literally said something along the lines of like, man, I wish I had like some time to like go and work on this, and I just want to see if we can create this. I think that it was a time where rack became a thing,
Yeah.
and it was like, I wish I could give that a try. I think
A
that should
distant
work.
2 years ago.
Right? and this guy kind of like shrugged and said, I mean, we can try. And then he went away, and he went on, I think on Fiverr, something like that, got himself an engineer. We talked about the concept. We gave someone some work to do. That person became a part-time employee, and we started to just cooperate on building things that they could resell and that I could use for free for my company for the foreseeable future. It just came out of like, being really tired after a meeting and having that second take where you're like drinking your the equivalent of your cocktail or your beer after a meeting. You're just sipping water and saying, "Well, that went well." And it's just like, yeah, why don't we try a company that doesn't provide that type of service? But guess what? Anyone who is a vendor in localization, chances are you have a bunch of technical people. You are used to dealing with any curveball that you get. You are super flexible, and you're very used to having to start a new service or do something completely new to stay in business. So those are qualities that I think, especially in middle and small LSPs, I think that they're underrated. They're underappreciated. We have a lot of resiliency. We have a lot of figuring out chops that we can get to use in times like this.
You almost took the words out of my mouth. I knew that this was going to happen. We've already burned a half an hour just like that, and I've asked you maybe half of the questions that I prepared. So that's a good thing. Don't worry, I'm not complaining. But maybe one last question, imparting what skills will become critical inside an LSP in the next year or two? What do we need to study up on in order to stay relevant inside of our LSPs, Jose?
I have no idea. I think that it's everywhere. If you have to stay relevant, you're going to need to know what is happening with practical use of AI, but not related to language and such. There's always going to be a few companies who will be leading that, and they will be the ones that issue the papers and create the products and things like that. And there will be research that we can all benefit from. Like quality estimation is one of those things that, for instance, I say, why would you get into that business? There's already enough people working on that. Let them figure it out, and then you can jump into that. But I think that AI, as from the point of view of not linguistic, but basically building a solution, solving a problem that you've been having with something that you build yourself, or you have someone build because you understand what can be done. I think that is the biggest game changer. I listened to someone saying that, imagine a world where everyone could program, where everyone could build things. I've been dreaming about that for the longest time.
We're basically here now, is what you're telling me, right?
Yep. And so it's happening. Not everybody needs to do that. That is something that I always like saying. I think that it's horrible that we're pushing. I always use the word like the cognitive load of having to learn AI. I don't think that should be on everyone. I don't think that the same way that, Excel is super useful and it runs the world. The world runs on Excel and Google Sheets, but most of us, we only know the surface of it. Even those, you can create like super complex stuff, but still, when you've seen someone who really knows, it puts you to shame, right? I hope that is the reality of what happens with AI. But you will need to know what is possible to do with Excel or Google Sheet so that you can ask someone to build it if you can get there. And then if you want to like nerd it out and get to the point where you can do it yourself, you will have more tools than we had ever before. So just building things that solve problems.
Jose, thank you so very much for sharing your insights with me this afternoon. It's a fascinating conversation. I can't wait to watch your session at Vamos Juntos in Buenos Aires. And what a great excuse to do a long travel to Buenos Aires. We're all going to enjoy that very, very much. Thank you for joining me this afternoon, and see you in Argentina.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me. Let's make sure that we eat well in Argentina, okay?
Let's do that.
That's the religion.
It's not going to be a problem, I think.